The talk with your mom? It flipped sideways out of nowhere. So you're saying my vibe was off? Yeah. Even when I handed you your water, you snapped like, why are you touching my drink? Hold up, seriously? That's where we're at now. Small things turning into explosions. Little sparks igniting full-blown wars. And I'm sitting here drained because I've been carrying this fight for us, for you, for me, for us, against friends, against whispers, against every sideways glance. But now I need you to fight for us too. Every room I walk into, I'm defending something that feels like it's slipping through my fingers. Where do we go from here? What's next? I don't know anymore. Music, do we need space? Because if you're not sure, I might need answers. To Puerto Rico, he swears he's been fighting for this relationship. But the truth? The cameras might have shut down, yet the storm between Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris is shaking louder than ever, and the question on every fan's lips is chilling. Is this the fall of love and hip-hop's most unshakable couple? What was supposed to be a calm sit-down over drinks spiraled into an emotional battleground. Voices rose, words cut like knives, and even the air felt heavy with betrayal. Insiders say Yandy has hit her breaking point, claiming she's been the only one holding the walls up while Mendeecees drifts further away. Their chemistry, once tender, now feels like glass shattering, tense, fragile, and deadly sharp. Are we just watching another lover's quarrel, or are we witnessing the collapse of a legacy that millions thought could survive anything? The quiet murmur of the restaurant could never drown the storm crashing between them. A simple lunch morphed into a showdown. Yandy leaned forward, her voice cracking like glass under pressure, whispering she was done carrying this weight alone. The words hung heavy, suffocating, daring him to face a truth too raw to ignore. Mendeecees sipped his drink like nothing had landed, but inside, the hit was brutal. This wasn't a petty spat over chores. This was the fault line splitting wide open. Fans who caught wind of the moment online were floored. How could the couple once crowned unbreakable now look like they're crumbling piece by piece? For the first time, Yandy, the strong one, the glue, let it show. She's exhausted. Tired of being the shield, tired of patching wounds, tired of giving and never getting back. Even a glass of water became the symbol of something deeper, something broken. To outsiders, it may have sounded ridiculous, but inside that storm, it was the spark that lit the fire. Mendeecees leaned back, brushing it off, insisting she was making mountains out of molehills. But his defense only deepened the cracks. Every word stacked another brick in the wall between them. And when Yandy told him flat out that his energy no longer felt like love, no longer felt like safety, no longer felt like support, his denial shattered under the weight of his own frustration. This wasn't about water. It wasn't about one fight. It was about years of sacrifices unacknowledged, about love that felt one-sided, about wounds that never healed. The more he argued, the clearer it became. Their story was no longer about unity. It was about survival. Yandy's voice finally broke, not in rage, but in exhaustion. She confessed she had been fighting for them in public, in private, against rumors, against doubters, against every camera flash and snide remark. She fought because she believed, but she said she was done fighting alone. And when Mendeecees muttered that outside noise didn't matter, she cut him with a truth he couldn't escape. It wasn't about controlling gossip. It was about proving that this marriage was worth bleeding for, worth standing up for, worth protecting. It should have felt like partnership, like they were in this together, not Yandy dragging the weight all on her own. Their voices rose, cracked, and collapsed, painting the picture of two people who still loved hard, but couldn't sync their hearts no matter how loud they tried. Fans replayed the moment Yandy said, "I can't keep being the only one fighting." That single line lit up timelines, a battle cry for anyone who'd ever poured everything into love and still wound up empty. Social media went nuclear. Supporters praised Yandy for finally ripping the mask off. Others defended Mendeecees, saying maybe the man was just worn out from constant confrontation. Twitter turned into a war zone, a mirror of the split ripping through their marriage. Yet buried in the shouting, there were tiny cracks of hope. For one breath, Mendeecees dropped his guard. He mumbled he didn't want to fight anymore. He stumbled through an apology, raw and clumsy, like a man who'd forgotten how to say sorry. It wasn't big, but it was something, a sliver of proof that maybe he still wanted to hold on. But for Yandy, words weren't enough. She wanted action, consistency, proof he would show up for their love the way she had. She needed to know she wasn't the only soldier on this battlefield. The weight wasn't just about them. It spilled into their kids, their families, their entire empire. The thought of their children growing up in a home drenched in fights cut her to the bone. She begged him to see it. And for 1 second, his eyes softened, like the truth had finally landed. But pride pushed back. He snapped that he'd been fighting since day one, long before she even noticed. The conversation twisted into a contest of sacrifices. Who gave more? Who hurt more? Who carried the heavier scars? A cycle with no winner, just wounds reopening again and again. And then Yandy dropped the question that froze the air. Do we need space? Silence. He didn't answer, and the silence said more than any words could. Yandy leaned back, her face cold, whispering that his hesitation was already an answer. Hope dimmed right there, flickering like a dying candle. The future of their marriage sat on a knife's edge. Fans online couldn't believe it. The couple once hailed as unshakable, now trembling under their own history. The silence didn't end it, it only reshaped it. Mendeecees folded his hands, like bracing for a sentence. He said he was tired of defending his every breath. He wasn't the villain people painted him to be. He lived life prepared for impact, judged before he even walked into rooms. That armor looked like distance to her, but to him it was survival. Yandy stared past him, out the window, the blur of cars a reminder of how fast things could change when you weren't ready. She told him softly, I never asked you to be perfect. I just asked you to show up before the crash, not after. He rubbed the condensation off his glass and asked what showing up meant now. Her answer was sharp, deliberate. It means choosing our home first, in every room that tries to split us apart. The air snapped again, heavy with electricity. She admitted she was drained from finding out about him in public, smiling through whispers that knew more than she did. Jokes told too freely in circles, where her ring didn't seem to matter. He pushed back. Rumors weren't proof. People loved to pour gasoline on sparks. But Yandy cut through. It's not about proof. It's about trust. About turning to me when the smoke rises, not waiting for the fire alarm. He nodded, jaw tight, before tossing it back. There were things he didn't understand about her too. Choices that felt like walls shutting him out. She snapped that the door had always been open, he just stopped knocking. And then other names crept in, like ghosts they couldn't shake. Puerto Rico sat in the middle of their table, like an uninvited guest. Yandy explained the trip was about space, clarity, breathing different air. Mendeecees scoffed that distance never saved anyone unwilling to turn back. She shot back, maybe distance didn't save you, but sometimes it made you honest. He asked if she wanted him to finally be the anchor she kept begging for. Her eyes locked on his. An anchor that only drops when the boat is already drifting isn't an anchor, it's a memory. His lips trembled, pain flickering in his face, before he whispered, I hate how poetic our problems sound when our solutions stay stubbornly unfinished. Their friends had opinions, and those opinions echoed through the spaces between their sentences. The last time they were out, a simple toast slid into a half-joke about who held the reins at home. It wasn't mean, but it wasn't kind either, and it came from a mouth that knew better. Yandy reminded him how he had laughed along, how his laughter had landed on her like a stamp. He said, not every laugh was endorsement. Sometimes it was armor. She murmured that armor worn for too long becomes skin. He rubbed his temples and said he didn't want to be the version of himself everyone else had edited. He wanted her to see the draft he kept trying to write. She told him she could see it even now, and that was why everything hurt. When love is present, disappointment isn't a stranger. It's a frequent guest with house keys. Across the city, phones lit up and timelines pulsed. A friend who should have known better had posted a story that cut a little too close to home. And suddenly, The clip of their lunch was floating on the surface of the internet like a bottle with a note inside. Strangers decoded the tone of every syllable. Supporters wrote long paragraphs defending both sides with equal fervor. A cousin called to say she was praying for peace, then accidentally. She dropped another rumor into the mix, slicing into Yandy's gut like glass. Mendeecees groaned that he was done being tried in public. He wanted to be heard here. She agreed, but outside, the trial had already begun. Verdicts were dropping like gavel strikes, stamped with emojis and overblown reactions that made their private storm echo 100 times louder. The irony stung. They had fame because the world watched, and now that same audience threatened to tear apart the very love story they once admired. The server slid plates onto the table. Picture perfect, but appetite was long gone. Yandy toyed with a single leaf, whispering how she missed the way he used to study her. She remembered mornings when he'd set alarms just to tell her, "Call me when you land." That steady comfort was gone. He gave a sad smile, admitting he missed Sundays when she'd silence her phone, curl into him, and let the world wait until the credits rolled. Both admitted it. The world had stolen pieces of them, and when they held hands now, there were gaps where fingers used to be. She stretched her palm across the table anyway. He hesitated, then took it. The touch softened the sharp edges, but the heaviness stayed. Reality sat in the corner like an uninvited guest. School schedules, family dinners, holidays with their names printed side by side, as if paper could hold together what hearts could not. Yandy said she didn't want their kids breathing turbulence, learning doors to slam instead of open. Mendeecees agreed, saying he'd never let their home turn into a battlefield. He suggested counseling, not as surrender but survival gear. She nodded, the first real yes in days, warning him it would only work if they walked in with truth, not a performance. He promised raw honesty, even the habits that looked like toughness but were just fear in heavy boots. Still, wounds lingered. The conversation with his mother resurfaced, sharp and fragile. Yandy confessed it left her dismissed, belittled. He swore he felt attacked. Words had tangled like wires, cutting both of them. She told him marriage wasn't about choosing which limb to cut off. It was about growing new ones to carry the people under your roof. For once, he didn't argue. He simply said, "I hear you." And the silence that followed meant more than noise ever could. A shift, subtle but real, broke through. He admitted he'd mishandled pressure, taken her strength as endless. She admitted she mistook his silence for apathy, when often it was just fear he didn't know how to name. He asked her to let him name it clumsily. She asked him to try, even if messy. Their eyes softened, armor lowered. It wasn't reconciliation. It was the first clearing after storm. But possibility isn't promise. Puerto Rico still hovered overhead like a plane circling without landing. She said she might go, not to run, but to breathe. He asked what she wanted from him in her absence. She told him, start small. Call the therapist. Cancel a meeting that always outranked dinner. Tell the friend who stirred drama that the kitchen was closed. He said he would, then asked what she would do. She vowed to silence her phone after 9, stop feeding her fears with online noise, and write down what she needed instead of waiting for him to guess. The check came. Mendeecees grabbed it, hands steady, not out of tradition but out of determination. Yandy looked at him, tired but present, and said she refused to let the public win. He laughed, not mockingly but at the weight of it all. The public only wins if we stop talking in private. She whispered back, then we don't stop. They rose, not fully side by side, but not apart either. Outside, the light had shifted, shadows stretching long like reminders that time waits for no one. Their steps fell in sync, quiet, careful, as if too quick a move could shatter the fragile rhythm. They didn't hold hands, but they didn't drift either. The city buzzed around them, unaware of the storm they carried. At the corner, Yandy turned, eyes heavy, asking if he understood what she meant when she said she was tired, not sleep tired, but soul tired, carrying weight that never lightened. His nod was silent but sharp, saying more than words ever could. They found a park bench, sun breaking through clouds. Kids laughed, their joy slicing through the heavy air. Yandy watched them and whispered that this, lightness, safety, ease, was all she wanted for their family. Mendeecees swallowed hard, admitting he didn't know how to build sunshine, only how to survive storms. His love had been silence and shields. She answered she wasn't asking for perfect, just presence. To let her in, even when he had no answers. He asked if she truly thought he hadn't been fighting. She said she never doubted his love, but she doubted his effort where it mattered most. Love wasn't survival, it was choice. To build, to grow, to stay. He slumped back, confessing he hated feeling graded, his failures outliving his victories. Yandy squeezed his hand, voice breaking. I don't want to grade you. I want to grow with you. Their phones buzzed together, dragging the outside world back in. Friends already whispering, already asking if everything was okay. Yandy rolled her eyes. Privacy was dead long ago. Mendeecees shrugged, saying the show had taught them that once people get a glimpse, they'll never stop demanding more. But this wasn't about a show anymore. Their bond had been stretched paper thin. Too many wars fought for the crowd. Too few healed in private. Yandy told him she didn't care about strangers' opinions, but she cared fiercely about what their kids witnessed, what kind of blueprint they were laying down. For once he didn't dodge, he agreed. The children deserved more than staged smiles and half-hearted peace. Then came her confession, one she had never spoken aloud. She admitted that when she slipped her ring off last year, it wasn't just anger, it was a test. A desperate hope that he would fight for her the way she had always fought for him. She wanted him to notice the empty space, to reach for her hand even when the jewelry wasn't there. His face twisted in pain as he whispered that he had noticed, but fear froze him. He thought chasing too hard might push her further away. She shook her head, tears brimming. Not chasing me at all did exactly that. The truth was brutal, but it was real. They sat in silence, finally acknowledging how unchecked misunderstandings had cost them. As the evening shadows stretched, Mendeecees asked her what she needed from him. Not next year, not someday, but now. She told him she needed consistency. Small daily proof that she wasn't alone. Accountability when he slipped instead of excuses. A reminder that love wasn't about winning arguments. It was about keeping the thread intact even while disagreeing. He nodded, repeating her words like vows, imprinting them into memory. Then he asked what she was willing to give in return. She promised to lower her defenses, to stop assuming the worst every time he faltered, to see his effort, even messy, as genuine. The conversation wove back through their history, nights planning a future, victories that felt impossible, mornings when coffee and laughter were all that mattered. Yandy said she missed those mornings. Mendeecees admitted he replayed them in his head when everything else grew too heavy. She smiled faintly, hope flickering, and whispered, maybe we'll find them again if we stop keeping score and start keeping promises. Yandy and Mendeecees' love story is hanging by a thread. What started as a simple lunch spiraled into confessions, tears, and brutal honesty. Yandy admitted slipping off her ring was a test, to see if he'd fight for her. He confessed fear held him back, but silence only pushed her further away. They argued over pride, parenting, and broken trust, yet beneath the storm came flickers of hope. Mendeecees promised counseling, change, and consistency. Yandy promised to open up without resentment. Fans are divided. Will they rise stronger or fall apart for good? The next chapter could change everything.